Faith Summit. And so it's sort of been a year in the making. And so we're grateful to Roy and to all of our other advisory committee members for all their hard work in developing the summit over the last year. And over the last, I would say, 3 or 4 months in terms of really intensive thinking and planning around this event. And we're really grateful that all of you could join us today for the summit. And so this morning we're having our Islamic Roundtable, where we're going to have an opportunity to really focus on our own experiences and the work that's happening in the Muslim community here in Texas around sexual violence prevention. It will be an opportunity for us to hear from folks who are doing that work, who are wanting to do that work, so that we can sort of learn from each other, sort of share resources, share our own experiences, some of the challenges that we've encountered. So we have a series of guiding questions that we'll be sharing with you this morning. And so we want to encourage all of you to fully participate and to share your thoughts over the next hour with us and with the viewers at home. And we want to encourage the same for the folks who are watching online. We want to encourage them to participate as much. And Maya, again, will share some of their thoughts and insights from the chat. And so, anybody have any questions about sort of the Benefit Summit?
Is this being recorded?
It is. Thank you, JJ. So it is being recorded, and so I want folks to keep that in mind. Kind of consider your answers and to know that your colleagues are from around the state are tuning in. And again, I want to encourage you to encourage them to participate as well in the discussion. For folks who are participating online, they are required to sign up with Ustream in order to have access to the chat. And so we want to make sure that the folks who are viewing online, if they want to participate in the discussion, they have to sign up. And so they have the option of signing up with Facebook or with Twitter. Not with Twitter. I wish it was that easy. Or with their email address, and if they use Facebook, all of their posts will be on their timeline, so all their chats. So people that sign up with Facebook need to know that all their friends are going to see every single chat, every single comment they make during today's roundtable. So encourage folks to participate as much as possible. And let's give Maya a round of applause for helping us with that. That's a big job. And help with all the technical issues this morning, so thank you, Maya. And so, thanks for that question, Jason. So if you have any questions or concerns, please let us know during any of the roundtables, and we want to hear directly from you. So before we begin, because this conversation is so new, this is the first time that we've ever sort of brought together prevention educators and community members to discuss this issue. We wanted to ensure that, of course, this conversation is respectful and rich, but also is useful for everybody. We want everybody to leave with a positive experience. And so in order for us to do that, we wanted to establish some group agreements that we think are really, that are critical in this conversation. That in order for us to come to this roundtable, we have to establish these group agreements. The first one is to speak for yourself and from your experiences, and no one here is expected or required to represent their organization or their institution or the faith of Islam, and we think that's really important that not one person speaks sort of for everybody or every community. And so we want you just to keep that in mind, that we want you to bring your full self into this discussion. The next one is to listen for understanding. This is really key in today's summit, is to, I think we're all coming here with the intent to learn and to listen. And I want to encourage all of you to really make an effort to learn as much as possible, especially if you're new to that particular faith, or to the faith of Islam. And so just to take time to listen and to learn. We are not going to engage in arguments or debate. We're really going to have, I think, a really useful and important conversation about how we can support the Muslim community around sexual violence prevention, and really think about what our role is as allies. That also means that we're going to agree to disagree, and that there are going to be things that someone would say or believe that we might not necessarily agree with or share, and that's okay. We don't, our intention is to really come to the space with an open heart and sort of an open mind, and really sort of engage in an opportunity to learn from each other. And we think that's sort of key to successful collaboration, is our willingness to accept our differences. Give unconditional respect to yourself and others. I think that's pretty commonplace in our gatherings, and folks. That means it's really important to take care of yourself, take care of your needs, be respectful to yourself and to the folks here in the room. Especially if you're using social media, also really think about the messages that you share and how they're going to be perceived, or how people are going to respond to some of the things that you're sharing from today's roundtable. So we want to make sure that we're just respectful to ourselves as well. Take care of yourself. That means that we want you to get more water, get coffee. You don't need to wait for the break to do that. You need to go to the restroom. You need to take a phone call. You need to leave for whatever reason. We know that our colleagues here have other obligations, and so we want to encourage folks to take care of themselves. If you are not planning on attending the entire day, the summit for the entire day, that's okay. We want you to continue to join us from your office or from your phone. You can actually tune in to Ustream from your phone, which is a really nice, really useful for this particular technology. We want you to continue to participate if you're not able to join us for the remainder of the day. What you need to be sensitive to others. So if there are things that you need, let the staff here at TAASA know. If you're triggered, or if something makes you uncomfortable, let us know. We want to make sure that we sort of facilitate and have conversations around those issues. But we want to make sure that everybody feels safe and comfortable and respected during today's roundtable. So please let us know. There are 3 of us in the space, and of course Roy is with us in the advisory committee. So please let us know if there's anything we can do to make you more comfortable, or if you have a question, or if you need something, please let us know. Any questions about the group agreement? Or anything you'd like to add to this list? You feel like are really important for this conversation to happen this morning? We can add. We have a really nice flow chart.
I think those are great set of rules.
Excellent. If folks have anything that they'd like to add, feel free to let us know. So again, if you have anything you'd like to add during the day, something that occurs to you, that comes up for you that you would like to address, we can add it to the flow chart during the day. So why don't we go around? I have done a lot of talking, and we want to ensure that we have an opportunity to get to know who is in the room and who is online as well. And so why don't we start with the folks? Why don't we give Maya a minute to check and let the folks know and to introduce themselves, and then Maya can introduce the folks who are online. But why don't we go around, introduce yourself. If you could share, everyone should have a table pen with your name and your agency as well as the name tag. We're very proud of those. I also want to just take a moment to thank Ted for the beautiful graphics that we've used in all of our promotional materials for the summit. He's not in here, but please let him know how much we appreciate his work. We're very proud of it, so I wanted to add it to the meeting. But if you could go around and introduce yourself, and then of course everyone has a table pen so we can see each other. and we can familiarize ourselves with our names and our organizations. But if you want to share your name, your role in the organization, and that would be really great. I'm sorry.
I'm Wendy Wilsonrod. I'm training human trafficking specialist at TAASA.
Nisha Islam, I'm the Prevention Director at the Texas Council on Family Violence.
I'm Syed Murtaza. I'm representing Islamic Center of Rashid, and I'm really thrilled and thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. I think I'm here more to learn more and take away. I'm not familiar with most of the organizations here, and that's an unfortunate thing, I believe. So I think I would consider this opportunity as a starting point for not just our center, but I'm also linked with several other Islamic centers in the greater Austin area and outside. So I can use my affiliation with them to move on and take this relationship and the things that you guys are doing that would be very helpful for us. We are doing a number of things in this context of this effort. Some of them are very, things one-on-one basis, not as a structured one. There's some structure going on in one Islamic center I know, but that can also benefit from the effort that you guys are working on. So we can, I think it's a two-way thing. I mentioned Liano last week when we were talking that I was engaged in another effort similar, but totally different agenda, but a very similar kind of a streamlined effort with the Leander ISD community. And it benefited a lot. We are into like a third year of maturity. So we believe in like community building as much as possible. At the end of the day, some issues are common regardless. Although I'm representing a faith, but it is beyond the faith. It's in the community level, and we need to be very, very inclusive of everybody. So I really appreciate the opportunity, and I'm more here to learn, and I can contribute as much as you guys need, and I can.
Hi everybody, my name is Jose Juan Lara, but I go by JJ. I'm a trainer for the National Latina Network.
Good morning, everybody. It's really nice to see some familiar faces. My name is Hilda. I work with the Council on Family Violence, and I think most relevant to this group is that I coordinate the Men's Nonviolence Project, which includes the listeners. So if you're not on that, let me know and I'll sign you up.
I'm Amanda Vining. I am not with an organization, but I am designing my doctoral work right now in sexual violence and social media. So I'm here to listen to what you have to offer.
Good morning, my name is Tim Love. I'm on the prevention team here at TAASA.
Hello, I'm Maya, and I'm also on the prevention. Hello, my name is Kay, and I'm from the Asian County Sports Services of Austin, and I am the official sexual assault communicator.
Good morning, everybody. Nice to see familiar faces as well. I am here. I work with the Texas Council on Family Violence, and I'm a coordinator out there on the support services team, and work with Emiliano on the Mobilizing Task Force, and with Hilda on the Men's Nonviolence Project. Nice to see you all.
Hi, I'm Annette Fines. I'm the Senior Training Specialist for Safe Place here in Austin, our local resource center. And I work with Men's Violence, so good to hear about how we can find other ways to work with them.
Good morning. I'm Davina Cooper. I'm the Chief Possibility Officer for Empower Women. It's a for-profit, of course, that's challenging nowadays, to be in prevention and to move this forward with the knowledge that there is infinite possibilities and that the possibilities we can't do this, that it's always working together.
My name is Colin Porthauer. I work for a sexual assault resource center in the Bryan College Station area, and I mainly do outreach education.
Good morning, my name is Dan Dorsey. I also work at the Sexual Assault Resource Center and also do outreach education.
My name is Neulen Bajon. I'm from the Houston Area Women's Center. I'm the Sexual Assault Services Coordinator.
Good morning. My name is Laura Zavala. I am also from the Houston Area Women's Center, and I'm a sexual assault counselor.
Hi, everybody. My name is Leslie Manzano. I work at the Houston Area Women's Center. I brought a team with me today. And we mostly work in direct services with survivors, but we're very interested in prevention work and social change. So I'm the manager of the Counseling and Advocacy Program, and I'm happy to work with Hilda and JJ and some others on just how to engage men in our movement more.
And of course, my name is Emiliano Diaz-Leon. I'm the Youth Engagement Specialist here at TAASA and the coordinator of the Mobilizing Task Force and the Advisory Committee. Most of our advisory committee members aren't able to join us today, but again, we're really grateful to them, to the members who are from all over the state and who have done just an amazing job of helping to put today's summit together. And so please consider joining the Mobilizing Men Task Force Advisory Committee. We are moving into our next year, and we are always open to new members. And we're really excited about the work of this next fiscal year, which begins for us on February 1st. And we're excited about the work that we have ahead of us. So this is really just part of a broader conversation that we've had over the last year, and we're really happy that we're sort of able to end our year on this work.
We also have Brooke from the Task Force Advisory Committee as well, from the Women's Center of East Texas, joining us online, and Crystal is being on the project.
Excellent. And thanks to Brooke, who was also was highly also involved in the planning. So really grateful to Brooke. We're glad that she could join us. I think all of our advisory committee members really wanted to be with us today, and for whatever reason, had conflict issues or they weren't able to travel to join us in person. Did you want to introduce yourself?
My name is Kyungye Kim. I go by Kim. I'm working at Asian Family Support Services of Austin, formerly known as Saheli. We are an Austin-based local organization that helps people who have been affected by domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking. Nice to meet you. Thank you.
All right. So thank you all for introducing yourself, and hopefully folks during the day will continue to exchange information, definitely exchange cards, and follow each other on Twitter and on Facebook and on social media. I think that's a really wonderful way to support and encourage the things that you're doing. But I think if you leave here today and you have additional thoughts or you want to connect with folks, we'll definitely use the hashtag Minnefaith Texas to sort of tune in and to connect with folks who participated in today's summit, as well as online.
We have one more person joining us, Joe Carrasco from the Family Research Center at Joby Middle School.
Well, welcome. I'm glad you could join us. I spoke to him earlier last week, and so I'm glad he could join us. He wanted to be with us in person. I'm glad he could join us online. So welcome to all of you again. And we're going to jump right in because we have this time together, and we have these additional roundtables during the day. And the next roundtable, of course, is our Jewish roundtable. And then we're ending the day with our Christian roundtable. So we hope that all of you will stay with us and be a part of those conversations as well. So the first question that we want folks to consider, and they're up here on the wall, and I'm sure folks at home can't see it, but in your opinion, why is it important to engage Muslim boys and men in sexual violence prevention? And so we wanted to sort of start with that, and sort of begin the conversation with why is it important? Why are we here today to have this conversation? We don't have to go in any particular order, and folks are welcome to share any thoughts that they have about this question.
Well, for me, growing up Catholic and being in a country that's very, very Christian, I'm very interested in hearing more about the Jewish faith and the Muslim faith. just to gain some knowledge for myself, but also to help survivors around how to discuss myths that may exist in those communities around sexual assault. And that's about it.
For me, I think it's because they're part of our community, so you've got to engage them. I think we want to engage everyone in the community, talking about boys.
I think this is a very, very good question, or metaphor discussion. I don't see violence as like a religion, and I agree with,
Letty?
That, certain groups, whether they are ethnic or faith or whoever, they go by some of their myths, some of their misunderstanding from their own maybe religion or something that, we are the sword bearer or doing this or whatever. So I think if we go by with in different faith days, whether it's Muslim or Jewish or Christian or whatever, and then address from their background, try to address from their background and remove the misunderstanding, because no religion on earth, and since we are coming from the faith days, no religion on this earth advocates for violence, period. I mean, there is no misconception in that. Now again, going back to that, there are all kind of, comments like, okay, well, this faith advocates this, or, this guy did that, I did something wrong, and you can blame my faith on that. So it's me who did that. So you need to, bring me in the court and say, well, why did you do this? Or I cannot really take, 1.5 billion people into this. So, you know what I'm saying? So, but the thing is, in order to address any particular person, you need to go back and try to understand where is he coming from. If he is from Islam, he is Muslim, you need to go back to in his context, like where is he coming from? Like, okay, you're doing violence based on what? I mean, what is your background? What is your teaching? What is making you say that, okay, yes, you can do that or not? Or maybe it is not religious. It is just the way it is. It's a human nature, and his family environment or whatever made him come up to a point where he's doing whatever he's doing. So I think one thing is giving an ear to understand where the person is coming from, and then advocating accordingly, whether if it is the religion is the basis for violence, then you need to address according to the religious teachings, whichever religion that could that be. I mean, whether it's Islam or whatever, because no religion, period, advocates for violence. This is not an option. This is not in any circumstances, period. And for that reason, like, I was looking at your conditions for this discussion, for this meeting, and I like one thing is like, you cannot abuse anybody, all those kind of things. People like me or people who are have some capacity in Islamic Center, or I would really ask you guys to go and ask them, and not really abuse them, but but from a context of challenge them. Ask for them. Like I tell you myself, you can ask me anything and you can say it in any way you want to, and I can guarantee you that I will not be upset. Because those are the opportunities. This is how I look at it. You ask me question, somebody else may think it abusive. I see that as an opportunity to eliminate the misconception. That is how I look at it. So you can ask me whatever you can think of, or you whatever. Bottom line is, you know, is if we are dealing with people who are from Islamic faith, they are no different than any other. So find out their background, where they are coming from, what is triggering them to actually doing what they are doing, which is wrong, and then addressing it accordingly. If it is their family environment or their peer environment or whatever, address it accordingly. If it is from if somebody is coming from a faith standpoint, please engage the religious organization around them as well, because it is not an option for anybody to be violent, period. This is my 2 cents on that. And, 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 this is very prevalent. This issues, the violence is very prevalent in our society, unfortunately, and it is growing. And that's more to aggravate it. So, like I said earlier, that we need to be engaged. We need your help. We are here to help, and we need your help so that we can build a relationship. It's not about being Muslim or non-Muslim or whatever for these kind of effort. We need to be a team member, and then we need to actually explore into the community to actually do the right thing. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Oh.
Mine, one of the main reasons why I'm at this particular roundtable is that of all the religions, this is probably one that I'm least familiar with. And so I always come from a background of seek first to understand. Mm-hmm. And so I'm thrilled to see you here. And this all comes from our belief system. If we believe that it's okay to do it, whether we learn it from a religion or we learn it from family or from our culture. And if we can first seek to understand, I think then we can have a discussion as opposed to an argument or debate, and then we can come to a resolution. So
absolutely, arguments doesn't take anywhere. The discussion takes you somewhere, maybe not to all the way, but and then we are in minority. So if you don't know us, it's we are to blame for that. And this is how I look at it. And we are always open, and we just for this particular Islamic center, and there are other Islamic centers as well in the Austin area, where they try to bring guests from all over the country, and sometimes outside the country as well, for different educational purposes as well. And we would love to, and I do not have your guys' contacts and things like that, but I would love to have you guys come to our Islamic center and tell about your organization like Safe Place. I mean, I know for a fact, when I go and talk to other people in bigger, in different areas like Dallas, who are a bigger community, they are using Safe Place as a big resource for, and I'm talking about now Muslim families and things like that. We need to know more about this, more awareness, how we can help, and get some help from your end because we meet with a lot of community members. What are those indicators that we start seeing some of these families and things that helps us that, oh, maybe there is some issue going on. So give us those indicators, educate us so that we can help, and we are proactive in our community. I'm a firm believer on the root cause fixes. By profession, I'm an engineer, and then I'm a manager in one of the high-tech companies here. So, so I'm a professional, and I work like that. And when it comes to the faith, I want to use that professionalism. So I don't go like a traditional, but the root cause fixes. Yeah, there are some symptoms here and there. You can address those, but the more important things are the issues which are deep-rooted. Find those out and then fix those. So the symptoms do not arise later on. And don't worry about those. So give us those, help educate us so we can help. So it's like a mutual relationship.
I think about the way also that religion tends to inscribe gender in communities and dictate expectations of how men and women should behave. And so I think that for me is also a big reason why we have to get into an understanding of what it means, first off, to be a boy and a man in the Muslim community. And, how that, or if that, if there are any like protective factors in that development that can help with the prevention of sexual violence.
I also think that language has a huge impact on how we talk, how we present, how we share an issue, and how we invite people into a discussion. And I think that, and I'm trying to make this kind of clear, every language has its own set of grammar and rules. And so if I'm trying to communicate in English to someone who understands English, and English is their second language, what I'm saying may be totally misinterpreted and vice versa. So what's coming up when we're talking about root causes is how do we convey that in a way that's clear and simple, that's not about blaming or shaming in the culture or language or community that we're going into, so that there's an understanding in the community. And I'll give an example. Many, many years ago in Argentina, the journalists there got together and decided that the way that they were reporting crimes, especially crimes against women, were not just sensationalizing the crime, they were using inflammatory words. Now, Spanish has very definite feminine and masculine words, gender words. So they decided that they were going to try to report it as neutrally as possible, without sensationalizing it, just giving facts, just stating what happened, trying to protect the identity of the victim. And back in the 80s, that was huge. So so from there, and they're still doing it to this day. They've got a whole group of journalists to do that with their media. And this is TV and newsprint and television. How do we get that message out in that kind of a way?
No, not yet.
Thank you. So these cameras swerve, and we're able to pick up everybody in the room.
No one's safe. Nobody.
Let's move on to the next question. I want to say, because we have a lot of amazing questions that we'd like to sort of explore a little bit, but I don't intend to cut anybody off from their thoughts. But I do want to explore sort of the issue that the role of Islamic faith leaders have in our prevention efforts. I think, what's the role of imams in the Islamic faith? What does our partnership sort of with them look like? So I wanted to sort of explore that and think about and hear from folks if you've had experience of engaging Islamic centers or mosques and have had conversations with imams. What has been useful and important in those sort of conversations? What sort of partnerships have you formed with them around this particular issue?
Well, I haven't had the opportunity to work with Islamic faith leaders in kind of the community I came from. The predominant faith that we worked with was kind of the Christian faith, we'll be talking about later. But I think that Islamic faith leaders, like many faith leaders, really play a part in helping guide their different communities, their faith communities. And having heard from survivors, they can be very empowered by the faith, or they can be oppressed by it. And so I think having heard from survivors that working with their particular faith leaders has either kind of reinforced the abuse that they were experiencing, or has helped them be empowered to leave the abusive situation and find safety is a critical part of that. And so I think by working with faith leaders and helping to understand how they communicate with their faith bodies is critical to really continuing to move the messaging forward of ending violence against women. Because I've heard from survivors that faith leaders can be very, it can reinforce the stereotypes of where men and women should stand and oppression, different things along those lines, and really recommend that they stay in abusive situations. And so I think by reaching out to faith leaders and working with them and understanding how they develop their messaging and what they're up against really can help us shape our prevention efforts.
I want to just second that. I think I'm talking too much, I guess. I'm so sorry. I want to second that, just going to looking into Islamic organization, Imam, who are the leaders, they are called Imam. They have a huge clout, and they are very respectful. And then people approach them for whatever reason, or the Imam approach the community members, they heed to them. They listen to them and they try to abide to them. I would say 90+% of the time. So they are very influential figures. Most that I know in the area are very good. So that's a good thing around, at least in the Austin area. It would be helpful, but nobody is perfect. And so I think an organization like these would be very helpful for them as well, not just the community. We cannot take anybody as granted that, somebody is the leader, he would be doing the perfect job. He would need some help. Like, for example, in my institution, I can go back and if I can get some kind of help, like, okay, these are the statistics from different areas that by every month, these are the number of issues that are coming. If you guys have some kind of a visibility on those number of issues and you have divided those by religion, like, these out of 10, 3 are Muslims and 3 are this religion and that 4 are this religion or something like that, we can take those and then we can proliferate that, otherwise the Imam would hear one family at a time as an issue, but the community may not know about it. But we want to tell the community that, hey, and the community may think all is well, no problem. Nothing much is happening. So the life is good, our faith is, helping, all of those kind of things. So we need to bring those up and say, well, you know what, in our community, these are the kind of issues that are prevailing, and this is how it is growing. 3 years ago, it was like this, 3 out of 10, and this year, it is 5 out of 10. So this is what's going on. What we need to do next in a community, from a faith standpoint and things like that, help us give those statistics, help us come to our center. We can arrange seminars, or we can arrange a lecture. You guys can come from your organization and tell us that, okay, this is what's going on, okay, from your faith, whether it's Austin or even farther than that. That's not an issue. And then then we will follow up with you guys that, okay, this is what we are instituting, and our imams are playing their role or not, and those kind of things. So please help us so we can help the community.
When we're talking about preventing sexual violence before it even happens, we're thinking about, I think you mentioned, like changing culture and changing norms. And the faith leaders are one of the groups of people that I think have both a real finger on the pulse of what some of those norms are in different communities, and not even like an entire religious community, but that religious community in that particular community. And so that's important information, as folks have said, for how we can approach our messaging around our prevention efforts. And it's also been great allies to have on board So then trying to shift those norms, if some of those norms are problematic, whether or not it's coming from, like you were saying, like several folks have mentioned, whether it's coming from the community or family or, that particular religion, faith leaders have a voice that can be powerful. They can get out as kind of shifting some of those norms, not only in the response to survivors, but in just the norms that are in place in the first place, like gender expectations, and the valuing of people of all genders. I think it's the voice.
Our agency has some level of relationship with different Islamic faith leaders in Austin. Not many, but some faith leaders are supporting us. So sometimes they support our client financially, or sometimes they can provide guidance because the lots of victims are taken advantage or because they are abused, sometimes use the Islamic marriage laws. So sometimes they were victims are misinformed about the marriage laws. That's why they are afraid of leaving their abusive relationship. So we have a good relationship with one Islamic faith leader, so we can take our client to their leader, and then their leader will provide some kind of guidance. So he can tell our clients, you can leave this abusive relationship. On point, he said, if you are my sister, I would say, just leave. So that kind of actually support we can have from that faith leader, but it took time. Also, he has some kind of duplication skill. Also, we have some kind of presentation opportunities with other Islamic center, mosques. So we have different levels of relationship. Sometimes they ask us not to talk about sexual abuse or financial abuse. We are allowed to talk about emotional abuse and physical abuse. That kind of limitation we have, but we try working with them continuously, so we can build more stronger relationships. But we are working with different faith people. It's very hard. We have presentation opportunities at local refugee resettlement agencies. But when we want to talk about sexual violence or when we want to talk about medical rape, it's very tricky. Sometimes interpreters will ask to us, they cannot interpret some part of our presentation because it's too sensitive. So we want to try to find a way to impart information to our audience. That's also another part that we are experiencing. Very hello.
I was also going to comment something along those lines, that I really think it's up to faith leaders to open up that conversation around sexual violence, because there is so much confusion about what it is, that it really is it's up to faith leaders to really kind of put it on the table as a topic of conversation, and start to explain, how it can look and how it can manifest, and even within marriages, because there's a lot of gray in that for people, and I think them putting it on the table really lends the opportunity for people to speak up and talk about their experiences, because while we can provide numbers, right, for what is out there, what we know about sexual violence and the part of violence is that it's not reported. And so really, it is in the power of the faith leaders to start those conversations and get a clearer picture of what that violence is looking like in the communities.
It is sad to hear that, by the way, that, you can talk, but you cannot talk everything. And it really sad me. Everything should be on the table. Everything should be discussed. But Lindy, she mentioned about like how you talk to different, people or community or family is also very important. So your job is that you should put everything on the table. You should discuss everything with the Islamic leaders. And then in turn, the Islamic leader, the imam, will have to go to different families and community and then use the right language to actually give them the counsel. But shutting the door at the first step, like, okay, you can talk about this and this, and you cannot talk about this and this, is not an option, period. I mean, so everything, and I'm not saying just because I'm here, we can start that dialogue from our center, okay? And then we can proliferate that further, okay? We can help that as well, okay? Not just for this center right here, but we can proliferate, we can help that if that's happening. And I'm surprised, really, to be honest with you, because I know most of the imams here in the Austin area, and if somebody is saying that, we can talk about this and this, and we cannot even talk about this and this, while we know for a fact that those are the issues, it needs to be discussed. It needs to be on the table, period, as simple as it is. And then in turn, when the imam goes, like I'm reiterating myself, they need to go to the community and then they need to expand on it in the way which is right, in their way. But the bottom line is, it needs to be addressed and it needs to be taken care of, as simple as it is. It's not an option. We are part of the community, and we need to make sure that we are in our faith actually doesn't have any space for abuse, period. So if somebody is using faith as a means that, I can do this or not this and this, which is different, then they need to come out and explain that from the faith standpoint. And I can challenge anybody, not just in Austin, anybody. I mean, and I can have my Quran in front of me. And I'm challenging not anybody outside Muslim. I'm challenging Muslims. And I'll have my Quran in front of me, and I'll say, well, okay, then tell me, where is it true? I can tell you, and I'm not a scholar. So this is telling me to hear that, you're approaching and you are not getting 100%. Please start from our center. As simple as it is.
I think that's a really heartening statement, because I think in our work, if we can identify those allies that are on board with helping us develop ways to talk about these really important issues because they see them as really important, I think that's something that we need to consider as well, because we're not going to be able to reach every single faith leader because people have different perspectives. But if we can identify the allies in the community that can help go with us to develop and shape these messages, or perhaps deliver the messages for us, that's extremely helpful. Because we can't gain access always to every facet of that.
One of the things that they taught me in part of our conversation, which I really appreciate them taking time to have a conversation with me about this particular event on this particular day, is that Friday is an important day of prayer in the Islamic faith. And I think I was aware of that, I was conscious of that, and I really wanted to make sure to schedule this meeting at a time that would be accessible to imams and other faith leaders around the state. And I think that's one of the real challenges, I think, also is sort of not considering this in terms of things that it's sort of their Sunday of worship, and that was just really important for me to hear in terms of planning and scheduling meetings or scheduling events that are really intended to engage folks in the Islamic community. And so that, I think it was a really important realization. I appreciate that, because I think it's something we have to consider in terms of how we engage, when we engage folks. So I'm also interested in hearing from anyone online or here that has had experience with an imam, working with them, or what that experience has been like for you. whether you have intentions of working, you go back home and really reaching out to an Islamic center or a mosque in your community.
Well, after listening to him, I definitely want to reach out. It means so much to me that you're willing to be an ally. I think in all of us doing prevention, big thing we keep asking ourselves is, why don't people speak up? You need to give us voice. We don't know if they're allies. If they say nothing, it's like saying, I don't care. So for you to show up and for you to speak, speaks volumes. And so I'm more than willing and to be thrilled to partner with you or anyone in your community.
You know, if you know there is a problem, just putting it under the rug will not solve it, will not eliminate it. It will either remain there or it will grow. That's it. So you need to address it. If it is sensitive, you still have to deal with it. You have to address it and you have to resolve it. Otherwise, it will either stay or it will grow. It will not grow back.
So I want to move on to this next question because it's something that, you know, I think a lot of folks have said in terms of addressing some of the sort of the root causes around sexual violence and some of the things that we can address. But I'm curious to hear in terms of some folks what part of the faith, and again, some of us might be not coming to the table with a really solid understanding of Islam. And it's really an opportunity for us to learn as well. But how does the faith encourage boys and men to model healthy masculinity? So I wanted to sort of explore that. Are those things within the Quran or within the faith that really encourage healthy masculinity? What does it mean to be a healthy, responsible sort of nonviolent person in the relationship, not just with your family, but with other men and with women and children. So I wanted to just take a few minutes to explore that issue. Any insights that you can share with us? Or, I know this is a very specific question. So.
Well, if I'm jumping the gun every time. But the thing is, I think it's a very tricky question. What part of the Islamic faith? I think like for example, if you look at the Islamic faith in general, we have a divine book, which we call Quran. Okay. That's kind of, in our layman term, it's our manual, it's a training manual, or that's something, TV comes with a manual. You cannot run the TV unless you read the manual, and if if the car comes with a manual, you cannot just keep driving it, you need to change the oil, all those kind of things, So, this is, as a faith, humans are brought down and we came with a manual as well, and the manual tells us how to deal, for me, how I have to deal with my wife, how I have to deal with my children, how I have to deal with my neighbor, how I have to deal with the community member, how I have to deal with the people whom around I'm working in a job. It has everything. It's a way of life. Now that's a manual. As far as our faith goes, our prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and before him, all the prophets before him as well, peace be upon all of them, they came and they became the real example and model of God, saying that, yes, this is in the manual, and the way they talk, the way they deal with things and different aspects, that becomes our model to learn from that scriptures. Okay. So what part of wherever so so for example, and the prophet was a man. And so, and that man was a husband, he was a father, yes, and so he was a teacher, he was a boy as well at the time. So, so the way, if you look from an Islamic faith standpoint, he is our model for how we should be actually reacting and talking, and how I should be dealing with my kids, and how I should be dealing with my wife, and how I should be dealing with my neighbor, how I should be dealing with, when I'm sitting with a stranger, kind of strangers, I don't know, what do you call it, but how I should be talking in this. He is my model. So what part of the faith actually, and so, you can agree to disagree, like one of you, but, from our faith standpoint, our prophet is our model. And he's a model in many things. But I'm just trying to answer from this very specific question. He was a man, he was a boy, and we take him as a model. We have not seen a single or have a record of any single incident where anybody can, even the people who are not from the Muslim faith, have pointed finger that he did wrong at this time or he's a prophet. So what do you expect? So any prophet for that reason. So that is our model. That is the part that Muslims must. It's not an option either. Muslims must comply with, and they try to use that as an example in their daily life. This is a normal life, so it's not like, yeah, he's a prophet, so you cannot forget about that, just to look at what this book says. It's not that. So from a faith standpoint, this is how we should be actually dealing with, in terms of your clothing, in terms of your way of speaking, your appearance, whatever, you try your best from that standpoint. So I know this is a very loaded question, because I think this is triggering, could be the next, I don't know in your question list, but this is basically, once you identify which part of the faith addresses this, the follow-up question would be that, are they following it or not following it? That is more important. So if you see somebody from Islamic faith who is not in the way he should be from a behavior standpoint, whether from an abuse standpoint or whichever standpoint, it is the way he should be referred back to his faith, saying, hey, in your faith, tell us where you can justify this abuse. A Muslim has to, and I'm talking from the scripture, a Muslim has to stand against the abuse regardless, whether it's between Muslim and Muslim, or whether it's some other faith to other faith. They have to stand against the abuse. It's not an option. It's in our scripture. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. This is an ayah, a line, a verse from the Quran itself. The first two parts are for people, for the people themselves, for the Muslims themselves, that what they have to be nice, and they have to have faith and things like that. But the later two part, what I recited in Arabic, is for the how you actually proliferate and make sure there is no abuse, there is justice all around it, and you have to stand with the justice regardless. Period. So this is where it's coming from. It's all over. What we call is, the way of life of the Prophet, we call it Sunnah. That is the Arabic word of it. And the Sunnah actually tells us that is the part where we actually model for boys and men to be the way they should be. And then, of course, his dealing with his wife and his wife's reaction is the model for the women. How the women and girls should be actually behaving. Now, if you look at every single man or women or boys who are Muslim, and you think that, this is how the prophet was doing. No. I mean, it's so that is the problem with all religions, but basically, you know, in general, we are not very good followers. I mean, it's whether it's Muslim or Christian or I tell me for one example, I'd love to hear that. We are not so that is not. If you look at me, if you see anything wrong with me, I'm not a good reflection. I can always try to and tend to, but I can never be perfect. So you can see me tomorrow. Well, I don't think so, but if you see me tomorrow is stealing somewhere and running, we cannot say that Islam's, or Muslim, you say, well, Sayyid, there's a problem, catch it. So that's the area. It's the type faith that and the model of the prophet is our model for men and boys to be in their best behavior.
Actually, when you were saying the next follow-up question, I had my own idea what the next follow-up was. I was wondering if you could share with us, and forgive my ignorance, more specific examples of what the Quran and the prophets say about what is healthy masculinity. So I was very intrigued when you said, the prophets are husbands and fathers and role models. So what are they role modeling? Like, what could I say, for example, to a young boy who comes in and he's witnessed domestic violence, or we go out to a community to do sexual assault prevention, and just say, well, healthy masculinity in what I understand of the Islamic teachings is this.
There are two ways to actually deal with that kind of question. One is like, first of you can ask that person who is coming from that background, saying, where do you justify from your religion that your prophet did this? Or Islam teach that? That's one way of saying it. So that's like a reverse psychology. And I can bet that you'll not be able to answer. And then the proactive way of countering that is like, this kind of act actually take you to vulgarity, to obscenity, to other corruptions and things like that. And then, and no religion, period, no religion advocates that. And of course, and then of course, there, you asked a very specific question. Like I said, the prophets, or any prophet, life is full of, examples being modeled. Okay, so the first question that I asked about the reverse psychology, he'll not be able to answer that here. There is no time ever for any prophet, not just Prophet Muhammad, but any prophet peace be upon all of them. You cannot find any example from that. So this is something that a person is doing on their own will. Islam, the root word is film, and then what it really means, Islam is an Arabic word. And it's the meaning of that is that you surrender your will to the will of God. Okay? So whatever I'm doing, I'm not doing any, I'm supposed not, and if I call myself Muslim, who is the follower of Islam, so Islam and Muslim have the same root word, so have the similar meaning, root word from standpoint. Have the similar, if I call myself a real Muslim, then I do not do anything which is for my will. I surrender my will to the will of God. And it is same God. Now, whether you're coming from a Christian faith or a Jewish faith, unless you're an atheist, it's the same God. 95% of the religion has similar teachings. We always try to put more efforts on those 5%, which is the differences, all of those kind of things. But it is the same God. We call that God Allah. Okay? But that doesn't make him different than the God, the God that Christians follow or Jews follow It's the same. We call him Allah, but that doesn't make the God different. It's the same God. So if I am doing anything which is surrendering, which is with the will of Allah, how can Allah or the God can, talk into somebody do anything wrong? It is as simple as this. So even without knowing specific example is the whole life. That's why I call Sunnah the life of the Prophet. The whole life is this. There is no room for any abuse, any injustice, anything. You have to grow yourself right. And if there is a problem, then you need to go back to your scriptures, your religion, whichever religion. No religion can tell you that do this or wrong or do that wrong because somebody and people should not take these kind of a certain level at a family level as abusive, but even beyond that, in their hand to justify their understanding of the religion, it is up to the state who has to make a bigger decision. It is up to the imam is not even imam of the masjid or Islamic organization, but a huge, like a country level or something to make some kind of a different kind of. I cannot just say, there is too much injustice against Islam, so let me start doing something foolish all around the community. No, I cannot do that. Even that is not prescribed. For my understanding, even, and I will always say my standing is the right understanding, right? But the thing is, right, even for my understanding, it is not right.
So we are short on time, and I just want to acknowledge that we have a lot of questions that we were hoping to get to, and I think we did in some way as I sort of reflecting on some of the things that we discussed today. I want to make sure that we have time, and I want to ask you to just take a few minutes, and we're going to end with one question that I'd like to hear from everybody, especially from folks that I'm sure during the roundtable. But if you could just take a few minutes and complete your evaluation, everybody has that. We really want your feedback about this particular roundtable. We want to be able to share that feedback with, of course, with Saeed and just with the advisory committee and with TAASA, of course, about this particular experience. Please do not put your name on it, and be honest about what this experience has been like for you. So we want to hear from you. And then if you can just take a look at the last question and think about your answer. What is your next step, if any, for you to invite Islamic faith leaders or boys and men to join your efforts to end sexual violence? So what are you committing yourself to do today after today's roundtable? How are you going to go back and engage and take advantage? I think of the invitation that Saeed made, but I think that's made to all of us in terms of our own communities at home. What is it that we can do?
Sure. So I have a lot of ideas. Yeah. So I think the one I'd like to share is that at the Houston Area Women's Center, we have a very large and very active group called the Young Leaders. They're kind of volunteers, but they also do fundraising for us, but they don't work directly with clients, and they get trained and do education around what we do at the Women's Center and why we're an important organization. But I was thinking that I could suggest and help do the work to look at who the members are, and if there are Islamic young leaders there, maybe starting with them to help us do some prevention work in the communities and to help us identify allies in the Islamic, leadership space and see what they would like to do as well, because I think I know what I want them to do, but just to see what they would be interested in doing. Because I have so many questions about the Islamic faith, but I think, I might have a pool already. And if I don't, then one of the things that I would like to suggest is that we do some outreach to Muslim young people in our community. And by young, they're usually like college age or up to young professionals, so maybe up to 30 years old, and trying to engage them in our young leaders group to kind of make that happen.
And when you're saying community, you're talking about Houston community?
The Houston community is huge, but specifically in the Islamic faith. Yeah, so maybe I.
From that, if I give you a contact
Yes.
from Houston, will that be beneficial or from
Yes,
us?
it would be. Yes, it would be. Yeah,
Well,
I'm in.
let me know your contact and I will be glad to help you out in that. You can see with a contact and from somebody who has a bigger umbrella in overall Austin and Houston. I don't know if you have heard ISGH, Islamic Center of Greater Houston. They have several facilities all over Houston and outside Houston as well. I'll try to find somebody who will get engaged with you and then you can, benefit from each other.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Let me know.
For me, I am also left with a lot of questions, just because like someone else mentioned, for me the Islamic faith is one that I don't have as much knowledge about, and I do want to know more, just because, in my experience, I think working with survivors is something that's one of the areas that can be overlooked. And so, for me, one of the steps that I just want to commit to personally is learning more so that I can have a stronger knowledge base, and that, I can also help others.
For me, part of it is also learning more. I feel like that's one of the things that as a counselor in thinking about faith, like Laura was saying, sometimes it's a easy subject, like should we talk about it, but I do like talking about it with my clients because I feel like that's an important and very, very, very ingrained part of their life, and I want to make sure that I know. Also in my community, I live in a very diverse community, so I feel like my neighbors are Muslims, are Christians, but like I'm very conservative. So I think part of it I'm already doing it, just be open to talk, just to have conversations with people. I love it.
For me, I think the next step is definitely a big part of it, learning more. But also, in the Islamic Center, all stations, faith instruction, so, we have to kind
That's a quick and easy.
I'm gonna start my own backyard. Austin is my area, so I'll be contacting you.
Indiana has my contact information, so please share with anybody who wants to contact, anybody who is interested to come to Islamic Center, please welcome, feel free to give my contact to anybody. And really, really welcome. Anybody welcome, please we'll arrange a time and the audience and then so that you can come and share.
I think also it would look well getting your contact information since we are here in Austin, and then hopefully trying to get together and making things that we've done in the past, working with different faith religions in the Christian community. A lot of times what we do is we create groups or ministries for them to be able to say if there's somebody in your community who's been a victim of sexual or domestic violence, how can you in the ministry help them? And for the Jewish faith, we've done trainings for the rabbis. And so if we could do something where we're having a training for the imams, or we're doing something with the faith community itself, that would be really great. So just trying to get some more going with that.
I think personally, I want to be more intentional in reaching out to the Islamic community. It's something that professionally I've really never done. I know Hilda and I are organizing a demonstration of sorts for our upcoming Capital Day, and it would be amazing to have a group of people from the Islamic faith out there, boys and men specifically, to help us get the message across that we want better protections, more money to help survivors in this issue. So we definitely like to reach out to you, send you the information. Thanks.
We have a comment from Jose saying that he was interested in finding young college or young professionals that would like to start a group for or mentor and volunteer to
talk to middle school students that are
Do the ditto thing, but I think just continuing to learn and thinking about, it's a good reminder for me, like, that as much as we always strive to be inclusive in our efforts, to engage different communities and figuring out what violence is looking like and then trying to end it, that we're always leaving, like, we're always not reaching out to communities. And just need to continue to push ourselves to do that. And to develop those different partnerships, not only for us, but also that we can leverage those with local students as well.
So I don't work directly with faith leaders or faith organizations, but I think just on a personal and even a professional level, creating a culture and an environment of acceptance, because if you want one community to accept you and your experience, you also have to be as accepting, if not more. And I believe that it was Ms. Cooper who said that for her, Islam was the most, or I guess the least understood religion. And I think that's very true for a wide percentage of Americans. So I think just creating that environment on both a personal and a professional and hopefully a communal level of acceptance and understanding and reaching out for that.
So I was thinking about, we've had different initiatives at the council in the past that have, in a way, tried to figure out how to bring in community, faith-based communities into the fold for statewide prevention efforts, and it looks very differently. But I don't think anything's really taken hold. So I think this is just another way that we can start thinking about, like, what can it look like? You know, is there something that we haven't tried? Because we did have an amazing roundtable at a statewide years ago that produced this beautiful preamble that I was looking for and wanted to send to you, where we brought people of many faiths to talk about kind of how they saw their faith or what their faith was, what role did it play in the prevention of violence, and everybody had very heartfelt things to say. So I mean, I think the energy is there, but we just haven't figured out how to hold on to it.
just echoing a lot that's been said, just for me, as a person who to learn more without fear. But I think a lot of this stuff that we're talking about is still, there's an element of racism and all of that when we talk about Islam and people who identify as Muslim and using separate language like them or they. And for me, it's just really about, I was keeping silent because I wanted to see how I reacted to the conversation. I'm trying to resist all of that fear and anxiety and racism at the end of the conversation. So for me, it's just about learning more, and the fact that I'm part of a national organization that identifies as one of the 4 cultural institutions that do training and technical assistance around this. It's really, I need to work more with Asia Pacific Institute on Gender-Based Violence, which is the other national technical assistance organization, and just really having more conversation with them. And as my peers and my colleagues, like, how can I support you, in your conversation? Because for me also, I'm also thinking about the safety of women who are coming out, and the repercussions of resistance to that and exposing themselves, and then just women who identify as part of, as Muslim or being part of the Islamic faith, and doing this type of training and going into the community, the risk of exposing, they're presenting themselves to, and like, how can I stand by them as an ally, and not just from a fearful place of their own safety, but just really having honest conversations and going, not just having people coming to us, but actually going to the community and finding leaders like Saeed, going into and having conversations like, you need to walk me through this conversation because I am completely ignorant. So that's where I'm coming from.
Well, again, I'm very thankful. I'm delighted to be here. And opportunity, and I would like to see this, like I mentioned, I would like to see this event as the starting point, and we need to take it to the more progressive, at a different level, and it should be like a chain reaction to meeting with Islamic centers and addressing them as well, arranging seminars in Islamic centers or maybe other synagogues and churches as well. And, it should proliferate because these kind of efforts that you guys are doing, great effort. I mean, you and I'm so excited to see you guys here in a sense, like, I know from a faith standpoint, I'm the only one who is, from Islam, but all of you are here. Why you are here? It's not about like, oh, I care about Islam so much, so that's why I want to be here at 9 o'clock. No. It's because of the community today. That is what the biggest mistake we have. And that is a common stake for whether it's Islam or any other religion. So that is what is bringing, and that is why I'm so delighted that you guys are here, because you want to make a society, a community healthy, and it is everybody's job. It's everybody's job, regardless of the faith. And that's why I'm really honored to be part of this. And if you guys think that we are the missing link, we are not, and we are not supposed to be. So please engage us. Please come to us, and and tell us, educate us how we can help. We have things that we can actually help you guys, give pointers and things like that as well. But we need help from you guys as well to educate us without being either shy or without feeling that you'll be discouraged or things like that or offended. Just be open. That's really, unless you will be open, you will not know what's really the core of the problem is. So it should be. Now, addressing the core of the problem is a different thing. That is up to the Islamic leaders, how they need to tackle different community members and etc. But you should actually come out open that, hey, you don't like the mirror. I mean, it's not the mirror. I mean, so face it. so please come on open period. And welcome to the Islamic Center of Brashikri. If that's what you think would be the starting point, welcome to go in any other Islamic center as well. I know all of them, and I know the imams of all of them as well. They are very, very good imams. But then they have board members as well. There are other structures as well. Like in Islamic Center, there is a committee which is a social welfare committee. There are 3 members in there. We can get you guys engaged with them. They have a structure. How great it is working, I'm not sure. But they have a structure of like helping out the survivors, helping out with some other needs, etc. for these kind of reasons. So there are means to do that. We need to actually synchronize the whole thing. So it's better to have a single effort, a bigger effort, stronger. It will make the whole community, I think. So please welcome to our center. Sorry again for the
I guess for me, I am challenged to rethink the language that we use. I think when we said, and then JJ said, it really resonated with me in the sense of how even the language that we use to work towards ending sexual violence or ending violence can come off as exclusionary, and thinking about what that means in terms of including different populations, right? And so we want to reach out to them, and that kind of thing is something that I'm challenged by. And how do we really use inclusive language, really, and challenge ourselves to kind of think through our shortcomings in that way. And so that's where I'm at.
when I did counseling many years ago, I worked with a group of women who were coming out of prison, who were in there for many different reasons, and they also had chemical dependency issues. They talked about their faith, regardless of what their faith was, as if it were, I don't want to say the gospel because but that was the truth. It was a portion of the truth, and yet it was misinterpreted by them in many different ways to justify or rationalize or self-protect themselves. And so I started trying to find where in the Bible they were coming from, and when I confronted them with something else that said, look, this is what I found, the unintended consequences of that was shame, guilt, retreating, disassociate, whatever you want to call it. My best intentions were undermined by what I was trying to do good. So that's my long-winded way of saying, as we move forward, I would want to do this slowly, cautiously, respectfully for everyone in the community. Because my beliefs are my beliefs, and if someone comes and tells me that what I believe is wrong, it's going to have a reaction in me. Some people may be more open, some people may not, and there's that big, spectrum of where we fall. And that's what I was thinking about as we were talking in here. How do we move forward cautiously and respectfully?
Check with Maya, is there anything else that somebody should? And then finally, I think for us here at TAASA is as a prevention team and as an engagement specialist, I really want to committed to helping folks think about this particular community and how to engage them and sort of the lessons that we've learned in organizing this particular roundtable and sharing that with other stakeholders from around the country who are wanting to organize similar summits. So I just want to encourage you to contact me. All my contact information is there. I want to encourage you to, of course, follow TAASA on Twitter and follow me for just sort of updates and information and resources related to this issue. And so hopefully this is, like everyone has said, is sort of the beginning of these conversations. So I want to thank all of you for joining us for this particular roundtable. Of course, we're going to take a really quick break, and then some other folks might be joining us for the next roundtable, which is scheduled to start at 10:45. So thank you all so much for joining us, and please take a minute to receive information. And hopefully, if you decide to stay with us for the next roundtable, it starts at 10:45. Right now. And so it will be until 12:15. So hopefully, folks can join us. So please take a break, take care of yourself, and we'll start make sure that folks have some time to get coffee and water and talk before we begin the next one. So thank you so much for joining us this morning. Thank you. Thank you.
Got a lot of people